Today we're going to talk about the Israeli-Hamas war. It is October 10th, a Tuesday. The war began on Sunday when Hamas launched that extremely bold and large terrorist operation, killed all those people. So what's notable about this right now, because we're still in the really early days of this is just the beginning of what this is. This is very different from anything that really came before. And we might be in the beginning of something that can go very far and really change that region and really change Israel too. So let's get into it. Just to recap a little bit and just to sketch out the main points of what we want to talk about. So basically Hamas conducted the most destructive terrorist attack on Israel pretty much ever. I think recent stats from today basically say the death count is up to 1,500 Israelis, mostly civilians, about 2,600 wounded. About 100 people, 150 people were taken captive by Hamas, some military, mostly civilians. You had a lot of really horrific images, like those people getting killed in the music festival, and girls getting kidnapped and raped, and their dead bodies paraded, just horrific shit. And what we know from the Israeli response right now, on Sunday they declared war on Hamas. Basically, they're going to make it so that Hamas cannot do anything like this ever again, which means that Hamas as a political entity, and it's been a political entity for a little while, they're going to need to be completely destroyed. So they can't really be a functioning political or security entity anymore in the Gaza Strip. The last thing is that Netanyahu said on the speech on October 9th, Monday, that the scale would be something they've never seen before. And as of this recording, Israel continues to bomb Gaza. About 700 people have been killed, according to stats I've seen this morning. 3,700 injured in the Gaza Strip. And this is only going to rise. October 9th, Monday, Israel imposed a complete blockade on Gaza. No food, water, electricity. This signals kind of the society's overall turn towards collective punishment. I'm sure there's some kind of security rationale behind this, but the defense minister called them animals who live out there, and it's kind of, the gloves are off. I don't think there's going to be as much attention paid to protecting civilians. And they've called up the reserves. They're gathering their ground forces. There's some media reports basically saying that 100,000 Israeli soldiers have been sent to the areas around Gaza, to the south of Israel. And 360,000 reservists have been mobilized. So that's about almost 500,000 soldiers mobilized in total. So the only real conclusion here is that Israel, and considering the goals that they just stated in going to war, they're going to go into Gaza on the ground. And it's going to be a ground offensive, and it's going to be pretty ugly. They're also shoring up their forces to prepare for the worst case scenario where they're attacked on multiple fronts. We'll get into that in the next slide. The last thing is that the U.S. has pledged their complete support behind Israel and has sent a carrier strike group to the region, which is no joke. That thing can do a lot of damage, and it looks like it's to act as a deterrent for any regional actors to get involved, to kind of change their calculus. So the next thing is pivot points to watch. These are things that you want to watch in the coming days and weeks in order to see how the thing is going to go. Whether this thing is going to be a very bloody but somewhat contained war, or whether this is going to completely change the region. Now, remember, Netanyahu said their military operation will change the Middle East. I actually don't doubt that. But it might change it in a way that the Israelis don't like. But I would argue that the number one thing to watch in the coming days is the number of civilian casualties in Gaza. So as stated before, Israel is at war with Hamas. This means Israel cannot accept a Gaza Strip that's controlled by Hamas. This suggests that this war is going to have some kind of conclusion. And, there's a broader question of, once you get rid of Hamas, which is the governing authority in the Gaza Strip, who takes the place? Now, Israel does not want to reoccupy Gaza. They originally withdrew in 2005 for, among other reasons, to enhance their security. I think that's a problem for another day. Right now, I think the necessity is to go in and destroy Hamas and Islamic Jihad, and they're going to worry about the rest a little later. Basically, them going in the ground is going to result in a high number of casualties in Gaza. The Gaza Strip is one of the most densely populated places on Earth. If we're going to try to predict casualties, we can look to examples of other cities and other wars that have been under siege and kind of like predict casualties based on that. So, for instance, if we look back in the war against ISIS, back in October 2016, there was the battle to pretty much destroy ISIS in their headquarters in Mosul, which ran for about 10 months. And the civilian casualty rates estimated around 9,000 to 11,000 dead. That's the count from Mosul's gravediggers and morgues. So Mosul had a population before the battle to be estimated around 1.5 to 2 million people. Reporting indicated that 500,000 people fled the city prior to the battle. So that brings it down to like 1 million to 1.5 million. So Gaza's population is about 2.3 million in the whole territory and 500,000, just above 500,000 in Gaza City proper. So if we're using Mosul as any kind of guide, if casualties is 10,000 per 1 million, basically 1 in every 100 people are killed. And if the casualty is 10,000 in 1.5 million, basically that means 1 person in every 150 people killed. I'm not trying to body count, like give an advanced body count here. I'm just trying to give the sense of what to expect based on historical accounts and based on the Israelis' current attitude, which is on the harsher end of collective punishment. It seems like the death toll is going to exceed 10,000. Now, why this is important is that every death, every strike is an opportunity for videos and pictures that document that to make its way onto the internet and to galvanize anger in the Muslim world and beyond. We already saw that, since the terrorist attacks, there has been a huge polarization in opinion between the people who are supporting Israel and denouncing the terrorist attack and the people on the Palestinian side that are frankly proud of what, kind of the Palestinians striking back after all these years of oppression, and especially during the right-wing government. Like, this incident exposed a lot of polarization around the world. One side is on the Palestinian side, and every picture and video that's going to come out of Gaza, especially when the fighting really gets ugly and a lot of footage comes out, it's going to galvanize public opinion. So I would say that civilian casualties, like think about the impact of pictures in war. Think about how during the Vietnam War, the picture of that girl who was burned by napalm helped change the public opinion in the U.S. against the Vietnam War and how it was used by the anti-war movement. There's no real anti-war movement here in Israel, so the dynamics are different, but I'm just talking about the power of images. And there's going to be a lot of powerful images coming out of Gaza in the coming days and months. So that's the first thing to watch for. I think the civilian casualties is going to be a key, not a driver of the conflict, not a structural driver, but something that fans the flames for sure. And it's going to be an instigator. It's going to be a catalyst for future conflict. Second thing to watch is the West Bank. What's happening in the West Bank right now? One of the reasons that the Israelis were caught off guard so much was that they kind of thought Gaza was quiet. They kind of thought the security perimeter around Gaza contained the enemies within, and they actually moved a lot of their forces to the West Bank to help protect settlers against Palestinian attacks, because Palestinians would launch reprisal attacks because settlers came in and killed some of them. It's been almost like a kind of like a gangland style war for at least a year, if not more than that. Drive-by shootings, stuff like that. But the only difference is that the settlers have the Israeli Defense Forces to protect them. The Palestinians don't have much resources to protect themselves. So basically what I'm trying to say is the West Bank is a place that it's kind of a second front. It contains a lot of potential. And if there's like a full-scale uprising in the West Bank against Israel from there, Israel will be fighting on that front too, which will definitely destabilize the situation over there even more. So what's happening in the West Bank right now? As of today, there was reports of a general strike in the West Bank and East Jerusalem to protest the bombing of Gaza that started on Sunday. Today's Tuesday. I haven't seen any reports that it's still going on. Israel sealed the border with the West Bank for the third day. Not sure if that's still going on, but can be assumed that it's still closed. And 11 Palestinians have been killed in clashes in the West Bank in the last couple of days since the terrorist attack. Okay, moving on to C. Another thing to watch is what's happening in the north. Is Hezbollah going to intervene? Now, there's been violence since Hamas attacked. Hezbollah has shot rockets into Israel, kind of, along, if it can be stated like this, safe zones, so kind of agreed upon engagement areas. And then you had something interesting. You had Lebanon-based Palestinian fighters crossing over the border into Israel and were killed by the IDF. And Hezbollah actually said that they did not, condone this. They did it on their own. So the messaging for Hezbollah right now is kind of like, we're not trying to really get into it right now. However, in the statement given right after the terrorist attack, Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, basically hinted that they could hit Israeli targets if they wanted to, and he actually said that if war erupts, Israel will cease to exist. So, on the one hand, they're trying to gauge their involvement very carefully and not trying to make any preemptive moves right now. On the other hand, the rhetoric is very high. Here's the question: is can they intervene? But they seem to have two conflicting dynamics right now. The first is that Lebanon, as we've all seen, is in a state of complete crisis, completely bankrupt. The government is frozen and failed. I mean, they do not have a shortage of their own problems. And bringing a war into Lebanon will bring unpredictable and negative consequences to Lebanon's future and to Hezbollah's involvement. So Hezbollah must be thinking about that, about their role in Lebanon's future and what bringing a war into Lebanon right now could mean for that. On the other hand, they have branded themselves and made their role completely in what they call the axis of resistance. Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, the Houthis in Yemen. These are all part of the same kind of axis to the Israeli-U.S. dominance. And because this is primary to their identity, and I reference this. This is reference from an International Crisis Group report that you'll see in the description below. If there's a time that the axis of resistance, like if there's a point to its existence, and it's to oppose Israel and to champion the Palestinian cause, their time to act is now. This is a existential time for Israel right now. And if there's going to be some kind of apocalyptic war that all the jihadists seem to always like to refer, it is now. So on the one hand, Hezbollah is balancing its very real role in day-to-day Lebanese politics and Lebanon's future versus kind of its reason for existence, which is commitment to resistance against Israel. So there must be a lot of debates in Hezbollah right now about whether to intervene, the time to intervene, and things like that. Are they capable? Well, of all the political groupings in Lebanon, they have the most capability, organization, and fighters. And they also have a lot to lose, especially with a U.S. carrier off the coast. All right, so moving on to part D, countries in the region. Now, one thing to note about popular sentiment in the Middle East on Israel is that the popular opinion has always kind of differed from official government policy. The official government policy, especially in recent months and years, has been normalization with Israel to kind of recognize Israel and get the enormous economic benefits from it. But popular opinion has consistently been against this, and the people who govern those countries have to kind of walk a fine line between the economic benefits that Israel will bring, their respect for the people's passionate opinions about the Palestinian issue in Israel. So right now, it doesn't seem like anyone's going to do anything. I saw one article on Twitter, aka X, about Saudi Arabia canceling its normalization, but I didn't see that anywhere else. However, for most countries, especially with a U.S. carrier group in the region, For any country to do anything officially, they will really have to consider if it's worth the cost. With the civilian casualties that are going to come out of Gaza, no scenario is really off the table at this point. But I think a key indicator to watch in terms of other countries is large gatherings and protests demanding action. And, you know, if there was some kind of logistical pipeline to bring in volunteers to fight Israel, I'm sure it would happen. However, as it stands right now, no pipeline exists. But you can bet all the terrorist groups, whatever they are, I don't know what ISIS is doing right now, but all the terrorist groups are kind of thinking how to leverage this into their advantage and how to get into the fight, especially as the day goes on and the images from Gaza come out even more. Okay, and the last thing to watch, which is important, is if Israel manages to form that unity government of theirs. Now, what is a unity government? Basically, it's a wartime government where political parties that are not in power now join the governing party and they jointly make decisions. It's an opportunity for Netanyahu to distance himself from the right-wing extremists that kind of led to the provocations of the settlers in the West Bank, of the seizure of land, and the desecration of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which really incensed religious Muslims and really made it controversial. And to kind of pull it away from those people and bring it into kind of like the mainstream parties and kind of solve Israel's domestic disputes over the judiciary and all the protests that happened this year. It is important because it will define the structure, the political structure that Israel is going to go through this ordeal with. And it's going to define the structure that's going to face the world afterwards. For instance, like if Israel keeps going hardline, and definitely when a bunch of your people are killed and women are raped and children are killed and all these horrific images come out in horrific stories, that's not really the time that moderate voices shine. This is kind of the time when the people, the hardliners, the people who want to bomb shit, that's the time when those people have their day. So not really optimistic that Israel is going to listen to the voice of reason, quote unquote, in this time, and they might even double down on their hardline stuff, but I'm not exactly sure. So how do these pivot points interact with each other? A will drive B and C. The level of civilian casualties will drive whether the West Bank ignites and whether Hezbollah intervenes, amongst other factors. And if B and C actually occur, that will drive D. If all the Muslim countries see that everyone in Israel and around Israel is rebelling and fighting, what they see as the occupation, they're going to want to get involved a little more. At least the publics will want to get involved, and then the leadership will have to make tough choices, and that U.S. carrier group will be on high alert. So anyways, these are the 5 points to watch in the coming weeks. I'm sure this is not the last video. This will definitely not be the last video. But anyways, if you enjoyed the analysis, like and subscribe. Bye.